Welcome, I'm Ryan Hicks, and this is Modern Business, the podcast to learn from franchise business leaders and explore new business technology. Our community is about sharing knowledge and tools that help us achieve our goals in business and beyond. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Modern Business. All right, welcome back to Modern Business. This is Ryan Hicks, and I am here in San Antonio with a special guest, LaFreeda. Welcome to Modern Business.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do your show.
Excited to have you here. So, just by way of brief introduction, Dawn is one of the largest women-owned franchisees, actually the largest woman-owned franchisee in the country. Is that correct?
I think so. If not, I'm pretty close there. I mean, it's a small club, so... Yeah, I'm one of the largest ones. I don't know if I'm, in fact, the largest. I might be the largest solo-owned, self-started for sure.
Well, it's very impressive. So you're involved in a lot of different things. We were just chatting. You've got a book going. You've got a TV show that we're going to get into a little bit. And you're also, by the way, own a lot of restaurants because you're Denny's largest woman-owned franchisee. You own, around 80 restaurants? I
own 82 restaurants.
Excellent. Well, so we've got a few topics that we're going to jump in. Let's start back in Arizona. You started off with one restaurant. The story as it goes, I read you started hosting and waitressing, and then you bought your first business on credit cards.
Right.
And you hustled and you did your thing, and then from there you expanded and took it to 4 restaurants. Just talk a little bit about those early days and how you went from the 1 to 4 and maybe a lesson or two that you learned along that way.
Sure. So a friend of mine and I, we worked together at Denny's back in the early 80s, and Denny's bought out a chain of restaurants called Hobo Joe's and Colony Kitchens. And there was this one restaurant in a little mining town in Globe, Arizona, that they couldn't get supervision to. It had low sales. They didn't know how they were going to operate it. So they decided they were going to sell that out of the chain. The other stores they bought, they converted to Denny's. Mm-hmm. But this one they were going to sell out of the chain. Wasn't effective for them to keep it. So we bought it. We stayed there about a year and a half. And then oil went bust in West Texas. It went from... living like you're in Beverly Hills to having nothing. And so they had 4 stores there that they politely called dog stores. Mm-hmm. And they just felt that they would survive better with an owner-operator than being managed remotely by Denny's corporate. So we got a chance to buy those 4 restaurants in West Texas, and that's actually how I wound up in Texas. But we didn't have the financial criteria. I was like 24 at the time. My friend, she was maybe 26. So we brought in her brother-in-law and sister, and they partnered with us on those 4 stores so that we could make the financial criteria. When you're part of a franchise, you have to have a certain amount of money in the bank, be worth a certain amount on a balance sheet, because you're insuring paychecks for a brand. There's a reputation to uphold. So we brought them in as partners. We soon bought them out. We grew to about 13 restaurants in Texas, and then I bought my other partner out, differences of opinions, various things, and then I decided to develop the company.
There's a couple of things I want to unpack, and one thing I want to note is that in terms of financial criteria, it might be a little different for going from 1 to 4, and there's all types of franchise opportunities out there. But I want to talk about why go in to be a franchisee of Denny's brand as opposed to starting your own thing. Why franchising as opposed to...
So I'm a huge proponent of franchising for a lot of reasons. And first, I want to say, when I started as a hostess and a server, it was at Denny's. And so I was always familiar with Denny's. My mom worked at Denny's before I worked at Denny's. I mean, it was just, it's been in my life since I was 14 years old. And I actually have 14-year-old sons. So, I mean, it's like, wow, it's kind
of...
Twins, right. Yes, 14-year-old twin sons. Anyway, so it was a logical choice to be a Denny's. That's how the opportunity came. I was in that environment. But franchising is really wonderful because I think it gives you a set of tools that you don't necessarily have on your own. So I could go out and I could develop a restaurant and I could call it Dawn's or anything for that matter. I'd have to figure out what the menu is going to be, what the recipes are going to be, what the training protocol is going to be, what the decor is going to look like, what's the sign going to look like. There's so many things that you have to spend time on. And it's also, there's no proven track record on an unknown concept. So when you want to go and say, Mr. Banker, I want to borrow $1 million to build Dawn's restaurant, they're going to be like, well, we've never heard of Dawn's restaurant. And, we don't really have an appetite for that kind of restaurant. So the great thing about franchising is so much is done for you. Yeah, you pay a fee for it. But I can bet my paycheck that if I'd have done it my own concept, I wouldn't have 82. Maybe I'd have 5, but I certainly wouldn't have 82. So franchising gave me the tools to really develop into the size organization I wanted to be in. And the other thing that franchising does is, that, they have relationships with lending partners. And so if you're interested in a Denny's, there's lenders out here who say, you know what, we know Denny's, we follow the Denny's brand, we know how the leadership operates, we know what happens if a restaurant should go dark, we know we're not at risk, we're going to take a chance on you, Dawn, because we think you're a good risk and we think Denny's is a good risk. So, and I think that's probably true with a lot of franchises out there, because every franchise is looking to expand their brand, so they develop relationships with people who can help them do that.
Two things that strike me as I'm talking to you and as I've learned a little bit about your story. Number one, you're very persistent. And I think I heard a story about going from that West Texas. You take these stores that are I forgot the term. Dog stores.
Dog stores. These
dog stores, and then you ended up in San Antonio. I think there was a little bit of persistence that played a part in that, correct?
Yes. And, I saw dog stores as Dawn's opportunity. I mean, I was young and naive and wanted a chance and grew up with little, and I saw, wow, this is my big day. But, you can't take a girl from Orange County, California, and put her in Midland, Texas. Mm-hmm. Well, you can do it, but it's not going to work very well. So, I moved to actually San Angelo, a tiny little town, a little further out of Midland. It's where one of my Denny's was also. And I chose that city because there was water. I came from the beach. Mm-hmm. They had a little lake there. So I thought, well, I'll at least go to San Angelo because there's a lake. Well, 8 months in San Angelo, and I was just homesick, culture shock. Yeah. And so I would call Denny's and say, can you please sell me something in San Antonio? It was the next biggest city, is 3.5 hours away, and I just felt, had a better airport. I just felt I could fit in a little better. And after 8 months of whining and complaining, they had a store, they sold us. And so we bought that store, built a few more, and that's when I then bought out my business partner and went on to grow in multiple states and
got it.
Develop the brand.
I love the way you say orange, by the way.
Orange? Why? How do you say it?
I don't know. Orange.
Orange?
Orange. Did you hear the thing about the Laurel versus Yanni? I don't know if you've heard of
that.
No,
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. I'll send you. It's a funny pronunciation thing.
Oh, you'll have to send it to me.
Apparently it's huge right now. It's on social media.
I've heard little blurbs about it, but I haven't followed it.
I saw it last night. The second thing, so that was number one, is you're persistent son of a gun.
Right, so I constantly, went to Denny's, please sell me, please sell me, please sell me. And, I think I still have that in me because, I'll have dinners with the board or with Denny's corporate, and the CFO is like, come on, Mark, I'm sitting next to you. He's like, oh, no, Dawn. I'm like, what are you going to sell me, Mark? But I like to build them, and I like to convert them, and I like to buy other franchisee stores, but I'm always on the hunt.
Yeah, and we're just going to have to do another podcast because we can talk an hour about just that because you're a deal maker, and I love that. The second thing that strikes me about you is you're passionate about the restaurant business. You're passionate about deal making, but the service side of the restaurant business, you've built a massive machine, and you have a love for it. Where do you think that comes from?
So I grew to have a love affair with the restaurant business the day I got my first tip. I realized that I was in control of what I could make. That, you know what, you can go and you can work the counter somewhere, or you can work in a retail store or a gas station, and you're going to make your hourly wage. But I saw that in the restaurant business, I was a salesperson, and I could give great service. I could get tips. I could have money in my pocket at the end of the day if I needed it. I didn't have to wait 2 weeks for a paycheck, and I fell in love with that. And I also fell in love with the customers. And you form relationships with your regulars. People come in, they want to sit in your station. You get to know them and their families. They get to know you, and you touch a lot of different people, and you see a lot of different people in the industry of food service. And I learned so much, from personality types to what it takes to be in business, to how to give great service and not let your moods get in the way of operations and dealing with people. And I mean, it's just a great learning ground for anybody. As a matter of fact, my sons, who are 14, as soon as school's out, they'll do a 2-week intern programship at my Denny's. And they do it with a friend every year. They started last year, where they actually, seat people, talk to people, roll silverware, do things to just understand really what it's like to be of service. Because the restaurant industry, people go and they pay money for something, and they want a good experience. They want a happy face. They want good food. They want somebody to engage with. And that's what I love about the industry. I mean, where can you, like in my company, I serve 1.2 million people a month, just in my little company.
We just did a fist bump, by the way.
Yeah, we did do a fist bump.
That's awesome.
So I just love the excitement of, gosh, I get to feed all these people, and they want to come to one of my restaurants. And so that's what keeps me excited. And I get to give people jobs. That really used to give me tons and tons of excitement. Now it gives me a little bit of anxiety.
Well, there was the quote. I think you said to your mom, "Hey, Mom," way back in the day, you said, "We have 35 employees," and you're exactly that thing.
Yeah.
And your quote was what?
What if I fail? And then she had said to me, "Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You start over at 26." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then I just went along my merry way. I never looked back. And to this day, whenever I'm making any kind of deal or any transaction, I always just say, what's the worst thing that can happen? And, what's my risk factor?
Yeah.
But the anxiety of employees today is different. The anxiety is I can't find enough of them.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard. I want to give more people jobs. I want to give them opportunities. I want to let them come up the ranks like I did. It's just everybody's clamoring for the same person. We're all looking for great people, and it's hard.
There's 3 other topics I want to cover, and I'm going to be respectful of your time so we don't have to open up the can of worms too deep, so you can just say pass. But you have 14-year-olds.
I do.
And you just mentioned you're pushing them into the school of hard knocks, and they're coming in and they're going to go do a little bit of interning. They're going to learn. They're going to learn. When you look at today's educational system, educational landscape, do you think that you can just send your kids off to college and they're equipped for success, or do you think that like, let me just phrase it this way, is I think that there needs to be a little bit more focus on different trades. I think that there can be some interesting things happen to send a kid ready to go to the college phase of their life and put them through a training that might cost them $25,000, $30,000, and then they go basically like a little farm system and work and learn for an organization, rather than go down the path and become their own franchisee, for example, if that suits them. If not, they could get an experience, etc., as opposed to going and spending $200,000 on a piece of paper and then they go out into the world. Like, do you have any thoughts or opinions on that?
I have a lot of thoughts about it. So first, let me tell you my biggest regret in life. My biggest regret is that I did not get a college degree. Now, I learned everything on my own, the hard way, on the job training, but I regret that I didn't have that. And I didn't have it for a lot of reasons: money, family, lots of things. My kids go to work at Denny's because they're underage, and that's where they can do it. And I look at it as a kind of a community service kind of thing. They help the restaurant. They learn about people. I think that when a child graduates from high school, they are not immediately equipped to go into college. But I do believe that parents along the way can mold them to that, to do things to prepare them. And that's why I have them work at Denny's. That's why I have them do certain community service project. It's why they're involved in sports. It's why they have to do and attend certain things to prepare them, because, you know, one day you're at home under mom's roof and the next you're in college on your own with no rules. And that's what happened to me, you know, first year of college. Well, nobody's taking attendance, you know. So I think that the path to college starts long before you go to college. And I remember do
you think that college is for everyone?
I don't think college is for everyone. I wish it was for everyone. And I say that because I didn't have it. Do I wish I'd have done it? I sure do. And if a child has an opportunity to do it, I think that they should. Absolutely. I don't think that it's a requirement to be successful. Most of the people that I know who are successful in my industry are not college graduates.
Find that very interesting.
So and also the interesting thing about that is how wonderful that the restaurant industry can make wonderful entrepreneurs out of people without educations.
Yeah.
It's a industry that doesn't discriminate, right? You don't have to be super smart. I mean, you've got to be hardworking. You've got to learn the ropes. You've got to educate yourself as you go, but you have a chance. You know, I could never go be a computer programmer, right? I could never do what you're doing. I'd probably need some schooling to do that. But to work in the restaurant, you can get that on the job. You can learn how to run a restaurant on the job.
Last point on Denny's that I want to talk about. I've had the pleasure of meeting John Miller, and I personally love the Denny's brand. It's awesome. I said that, I think, on a recent podcast. Like, I'll travel, and I always find a Denny's to go to. And
I love you more even now.
It's America's Diner.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about the leadership team and about just Denny's as a whole.
So, you know, people always say to me, what's your favorite restaurant, Dawn? You're in the restaurant business. I'm like, are you kidding me? My favorite restaurant is Denny's. Puts my kids through school. It pays my mortgage. It gives me a wonderful life, and it has great food. And I was in Denny's 2 days ago with a bunch of boys, and a whole lot of food and a whole lot of value, and everybody had a great time. But the leadership at Denny's is, I think, the best it's ever been. John Miller is a prince, and I think I'm probably one of his biggest fans. I know he has a lot of fans, but I want to be first in line because I think he's a visionary, that he came in at a time when we needed something different. Mm-hmm. We needed a focus on operations. We needed a focus on curb appeal and what it feels like to sit in a restaurant and what's the ambiance and the environment. And he had a vision, and he really took us to a new level. We were so focused on cleanliness and food safety, and that's all important, but you've got to be all-encompassing. You can't just have...
kind of be a given, right?
Right. And he came in with a fresh set of eyes, and I think the guy is just brilliant and smart and stays up to date on what the trends are, what people want, and he's always been spot on. And, you know, he's the kind of leader that even if a bad decision is made, it's not made with intent. It's just, it's just, okay, well, we missed it on this one. He's great to work with. He's inclusive. We do a lot together in terms of, we have these brand advisory councils, mm-hmm. which, we have a marketing, a development, an operations, a technology, where franchisees come together with Denny's corporate and we have share a voice. And I think that's really important. Even though we don't always agree, I can say, I'm not in favor of this. And Denny's can go in and weigh it and say, well, let's test it. Yeah, we're going to roll with it, or no, we're not. But at least we have a voice. And I think our track record and over the last several years has proven that what he's doing is working. Now, there's challenges in the industry. There's challenges just with finding help. There's challenges with technology. I mean, there's challenges with everything. And so I think he's always having to stay on top of what's going to keep us current and relevant.
Got it. That kind of reminded me of, I just read a book by Ray Dalio, Principles. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they talk about the concept of the idea meritocracy.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
No, anyways, but it's what you guys do. So you have these different councils in the different areas. Anything else on Denny's brand as a whole?
Well, the one thing I do want to say, John Miller, as president of the brand, and me being a large franchisee I have the single largest investment in the brand. I sit on the Denny's Franchise Association board. He shows up at every meeting. So that tells me he's interested in what we're thinking on what the important issues are to us as franchisees. And I've been in a situation where we've had other leaders where we didn't have a voice. And so I think when you have a franchisor that listens, knows your concerns and what your goals are, you're going to succeed at a better rate than most. And, he's pro-development, he's pro-franchise. And if you do all the right things, you really have a chance in this brand to build your own business.
Last Denny's question: what's your what's your go-to order? I've got mine.
Well,
or do you just eat every?
Okay,
different?
so we have all these LTOs, and I'm going to tell you, I always go for a salad because I feel like that's what I should do, and I'm always in a Denny, so I try and be careful, or I could really rack up the calories.
I think you could use a few pancakes. You're fine.
But I just had the tres leches pancakes the other day, and they were pretty good. I love our new meatloaf. My kids go for the lumberjack slam and the moon's over my hammy. I really truly love a build your own grand slam because I like variety. And if I want to have toast and oatmeal and throw in a pancake, I can have it. And so I love the flexibility of the menu. Yeah. And I eat at Denny's all the time. So I try and taste everything. Just here's the biggest thing you should know. I have had to cut myself off of the milkshakes. I used to go and say, okay, just give me a kid size. And now I just had to they are so good that I just had to say, okay, Dawn, just don't do it. You can do it. You can get through this meal without a Denny's milkshake.
I just promised a friend of mine that I would try the keto diet. So I can't do them. Actually, I can't do milkshakes.
You can't do milkshakes.
Milk.
So I was at Denny's the other day with my kids and their friends, and so I had 6 boys. They all ordered a milkshake. And
You're
it was
just there.
I'm like, Cruz, can I have a sip of yours? Just one sip. Mommy just needs one sip. Okay, Mom, but just one. That's all you get. And they bring you, so you get the milkshake, but then they bring you the little tin of the leftover that, the shake machine made for you to refill your shake. He wouldn't even give me the leftover. So, no, Mom, it's mine.
Smart kid.
Smart kid.
So you're on a TV show. And it's a really cool concept. Tell us what that is and what that's about. Right.
So I do a web series called Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch. And season 1, we got 22.5 million views. And what it is we get young entrepreneurs, meaning not young in age, meaning new to their trade or their invention or whatever, and they get in an elevator and they have 60 seconds to pitch a panel of investors their idea. And we either, after their 60-second pitch, we let them in the boardroom or we send them down. And the interesting thing about this show is all four...
Are you watching it on a video?
We do. So yeah, we're in a room and then we watch them on a big screen in the elevator and we, there's cameras in there, and if we let them out, then the elevator's doors open and they walk into our room. So yeah, we're watching them pitch. So all 4 judges have to be in agreement because we become partners, the 4 judges. So if we say, okay, we're going to give you, X number of dollars for 20% equity, that means I'm just a 5%.
Yeah.
So none of us get to go out on our own and say, okay, we're going to do this.
That's an interesting twist.
Right, because we don't pit each other against one another.
Is it majority rule?
It is.
Or do you just get to take the vote because you're the queen?
Well, I like to be the queen, but no, it's fair. And what I found is it's really easy because business people, they understand business, and nobody has ever been in the debate over whether it's the right deal or the wrong deal, we get to a decision really quick because you know a good deal or a bad deal. You know good financials, bad financials. You know, I mean, yeah, you might miss if something's a good idea or a bad idea, but they've got to pitch it right, and there's an art to the pitch. And sometimes people get in the elevator and they freeze.
Yeah.
And you want to let them in because you're so intrigued by the product, and you have to say, okay, well, does the pitch warrant them getting out of the elevator? Yeah. And so those have been the harder decisions versus do we invest or do we not? And I just shot season 2, and we had a couple of interesting candidates that came our way. And so we had this one man that was deaf, and he had, I think, a hot sauce. And we all, we felt so sorry for him, and we wanted to help him. But at the end of the day, we had to say, well, if he wasn't deaf, is this a product we would really be interested in? And it's a hard call to make. And we weren't interested. We were only feeling bad because he couldn't hear and we wanted to give him a shot. But that's not really the basis of the show. So it was kind of a hard call to make. We also had a nonprofit show up through our doors where, they wanted us to just donate money. So you get some interesting challenges that the judges get to have dialogue about, but it's been really fun. I worked with 2 of the same guys from season 1, and then season 2 they brought in some celebrity judges. So we had Rashad Jennings, the NFL player, and he also won Dancing with the Stars. We had Danica Patrick, the race car driver. I think Kerry Walsh, the volleyball player. We had Warren Moon, the football player. We had another football player.
I love that there's an initiative that the IFA has with getting NFL players involved in franchising and some different things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going on that, when I was young and growing up in business and learning, man, those just resources weren't even out there. The technology, the social media. And let me tell you, it is all about the social media. Yeah,
that's my company, by the way. We should talk about that.
We should talk about
social media management.
Oh my gosh, because I'm probably going to need some.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that.
So yeah, the show is really fun. It's already they're already getting ready to launch season 3, so it streams everywhere. Just getting a ton of views, positive reviews, and I hope they invite me back for season 3.
That's killer. Well, they absolutely should. Most wild thing that you've seen? Anything? Is it all types of businesses?
Okay, the most wild thing that I saw. All different kinds of businesses and really fun, cutting edge kind of stuff. I mean, there's so many things. Okay, so the wildest thing I ever saw was this woman. Her name was Dawn as well, and she sold a love potion. It's like a test, like how you get a pregnancy test. And you can tell if you're positive or negative. Well,
I've never taken one of those myself.
Right. So she had something similar where you put your saliva on it, and it tells you if your man's going to be faithful.
Wow.
So I asked the question, well, does it work with gay men as well? And she's like, no, only heterosexual. So that deal killer. But it was just kind of like, and it cost $60. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay $60 to find out if my guy's interested. Truly, we already really know. What was the really interesting comment that came up from the panel, though, that I thought was funny is you've got men. There's a man that I shot the show with, and he truly just loves his wife. He said, I'd be afraid to take the test because what if it was a false reading and then my wife didn't think I loved her? And I think that would be a risk. I mean, he's like, I would never want my wife to have any hesitation.
Yeah, that'd be like the impetus of conversations that probably won't lead to the right.
Yeah, so what if it's a false, he says, so, we
I think you guys got that one right.
Yeah, we got that one right. But it made for fun, good TV and good conversation. But it was the wildest thing. I also, this last season we had this girl who did Wedding in a Box, which, people spend a lot of money for weddings, and for $1,000 you get this wedding in a box. That was kind of interesting.
That's actually pretty neat.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. So, fun stuff.
Yeah. You're writing a book. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, it's in its stages. I've been working on it for a while in my not spare time, but it's kind of taken on a little life of its own, and I think we're getting close. So still needs quite a bit more work, but it's in the works, and there's interest around it. So one of these days I'll finish it.
How about we do? And I like how you're just making us anticipate what it's going to be about. but we need to do a follow-up once you have it out.
Right.
and
It's going to
then
be a
we'll-
business book, and
Okay.
it's going to be really, my journey
Awesome.
kind of on the road to where I started, growing up really with nothing, and what it took to get to where I'm at today.
I'll pledge to you right now on the podcast, I'll buy 100 of them. Let me know. Like, let me be the first, and then I'll give them away.
Nice.
100.
All right. I'm going to write the day down. Ryan told me. It's like in my notebook.
Well, we'll move to wrap it up in respect for both of our times. Before we do, what is your favorite book? Do you have a favorite book?
I have a few favorite books, and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't read a lot because I spend so much time reading leases, franchise agreements, documents, so I do a lot of books on tape. But I've read almost all of Jack Canfield's stuff, which
yep.
I love.
Success
The
Principles?
Success Principles is my favorite book. And so there's a book that just came out, I think it's called Your Best Year Ever, that I started listening to. And, it's a lot like the Success Principles. The other book that I've always found really interesting is Malcolm Gladwell's The Outliers.
Love that book.
Do you? I find it really interesting, and I try and teach those learnings to my kids. And I don't read books for pleasure. I read books to learn. So if I ever have a book, it is about sales, growing, developing, positive thinking. We were driving to a basketball tournament in Austin, and I made my kids listen to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
I'm reading it right now.
It's the best book. It's the best book.
Yeah.
And my kids, they get so much out of it. And if you can start your kids now thinking about what it takes from you. I mean, my son said to me, he's not the tallest kid, but he's got a passion for basketball, and he wants to be an NBA player. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, do you really think I can be an NBA player? I said, Connor, you're talking to a girl who was a waitress who built an empire off her tips. Of course you can be an NBA player. You just have to know you can do it, and you have to work hard. And he goes, oh, okay.
That's awesome. My kind of personal philosophy is just three simple. The philosophy is much bigger, but it's just kind of what I'm about is three simple words. It's ask, it's learn, it's grow. That's why I started a podcast. I'm just curious.
So I think the key word there is ask. And that's one of the things that I always tell people. Don't be afraid to ask. People want to share. People want to help. And none of us know everything. And the only way we get to where we are is by asking and learning. And I believe asking is key in anything.
Yeah. And then the growth part. Look, growth isn't peaches and roses. They say that strong winds are what makes strong trees, and it's oftentimes the challenges, it's the grit, it's the tough decisions and all that.
It's my bad decisions that made me successful.
Yeah.
It's the mistakes I made that got me where I am.
Can you think of one off the top of your head?
Yeah, I sure can. So I had bought a lot of restaurants in 1999. And then and I bought them when things were booming, interest rates were higher, you paid a premium price. And then 9/11 happened. And sales dropped 30% overnight. I still had debt. I ended up having to really make some hard decisions to keep my company afloat. I had to talk to my lenders, but what I also had to do is I had to buy more restaurants to offset my failing restaurants. And so there was just an art to how I had to re-engineer my company after 9/11. And if I knew what I'd have known when 9/11 hit, I'd have never bought those stores. But because I bought those stores and I was deep in the trenches, I had to figure a way out. And so I bought even more stores, better stores, more stores, to give me more cash flow to service the debt on the stores that weren't performing from 9/11. So it's, there's always a learning in something that happens, I believe. And then when something bad happens again, once you've learned it and gone through it, you just know what to do the next time. It doesn't happen twice.
Back to Principles with Ray Dalio, he calls it another one of those.
Yeah, and
right?
you know it, you can do it, you can fix it. And the great thing about being an entrepreneur, some people will say it's great, some people say it's not, but you never get to quit your job, right? You have to solve everything. You're in a dead-end job as an adult, or you're frustrated, or you don't like your boss, or you're not feeling successful, you can quit. As an entrepreneur, you can't quit. When you own your own company, you have to solve the problems. You're the one at the top that has to make it better for everyone. So you learn a lot of what people want, what you need to do, how to solve, how to work together, how to blend ideas for the betterment of the whole.
Yeah.
And so it's always a learning process, but once you've got the tools, I think it gets easier and easier along the way.
And speak to, and we'll wrap it up, but speak to, you mentioned Think and Grow Rich. I think it's chapter 9 or 11 or 12 or whatever it is, the mastermind principle. And that's how, like in those tough times, and whenever you have to go figure it out and fail your way.
That's where the ask comes in, right? You ask for help. So, I'll tell you this story that I had about a lender, because I think it can help people.
Yeah.
So I shared with you after 9/11, sales dropped 30%, and I was never, ever late on my bills. But I had this month, I was not going to be able to make my note payment it was GE Capital. And so I called them up and I said, my payment's going to be late this month. I know I'm going to have late payment fees, but I just want you to know my payment's going to be late. And my loan guy at the time said to me, he said, Dawn, you are the kind of customer we love. And I'm like, I just told him I'm going to be late. Why is he loving me? He says, we have clients that bury their head in the sand. We can't even find them. They don't make their payment. We call them. They don't answer the phone. Here, you're telling us you're going to make your payment and you're just going to be late, and you're doing it ahead of the due date. He says, you know what we're going to do? He says, we're going to come out and we're going to see you, and we're going to work out a plan so that you don't have to struggle since 9/11 happened. And they came out and we reworked things. And I ended up paying 7 years longer, but I didn't have to fire anybody. I didn't have to close any locations. They worked with me because I called them, told them my situation. I didn't really even have to ask for the help. They offered it. And I just thought, it taught me a lot about being proactive, not sticking my head in the sand and pretending it didn't exist, just facing challenges head on. Because when you let them sit and fester, they take up mental space that you should be doing other things with.
Yes. That was a really good learning point. We're going to grab that and share that on its own as well. But thank you very much for the time.
Well, thanks for the invite.
And thanks for sharing that last story. That was really good.
Hey, I hope I get to come back sometime, and maybe I'll have more stories to share.
We'll check the calendar. I'm totally.
Thank you so much,
We'd
Ryan.
love to have you back on. We're going to have you back on for the books, 100 books. I told you that.
I've got your name on them.
You got it. Please sign them.
Absolutely.
Not all. You can sign
I'll
some.
sign them all.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Bye.